Topo Athletic is committed to lifelong health and better movement. Topo builds running shoes for those who get out there every day regardless of weather, speed, energy, or mood. Their distinctive fit and feel combines instinctive human movement with modern performance and lightweight comfort to help you keep going, keep trying, and keep moving. Discover the Topo difference and step into a run experience unlike any other.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 60-second Fireside Chat. Today is just going to be a conversation between me and founder and co-owner Jason on the personal account. But yeah, today, there he is. Oh, there he is. That was, it's for us because it's just us. But yeah, how's it going, Jason?
I'm good, Aum. How are you?
I'm doing good. I was just telling, before we get started, I was just talking about some of our partners, just telling everybody about the Monarch Triathlon, an all-female event put on in Kingman, Arizona, celebrating life. And it's a beginner-friendly course on the swim. It's USA Triathlon now, September 30th in Kingman, Arizona. And if you register today, make sure you do. Make sure to use code 10OFF4. That's code 10OFF4, and you can get 10% off between now and July 4th. 10OFF4. So, yeah, without further ado, welcome on our own show, Jason.
It's interesting to be on this side as opposed to being on the other side asking all the questions, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So, we can't go through the icebreaker question because we both know what the answer is already, and everybody knows what our stance is on it. We have a team Jason and a team Aum. So.
Yeah. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, it's about pineapple on pizza. I am absolutely adamant that it doesn't belong there, and Aum is absolutely adamant that it belongs there. With that being said, between him and Izzy and Callie, and I don't know who else, I keep getting all these pictures of pineapple on pizza. So let me say this. If you have to defend it that hard, then you know it's not good. I don't send you regular slices of pizza, right? I don't send you pictures of regular slices of pizza. Bread, cheese, sauce. That's it, right? But I get told so hard on why pineapple on pizza is great. If you're selling it that hard, it's clearly for a reason, and it's because it's not good that you have to sell it.
Oh, man. It's just, yeah, I think this will be 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, we'll still be having this debate and keeping score on it.
That's right.
But yeah, so skipping over that icebreaker question, because again, we know what the answer is to that.
Go any further, like that is a picture of New York City, right? We don't walk around with pineapple on pizza in that city.
Oh my goodness. So I think this, I've heard this story quite a few times, but I think a good place to start is just telling people how the concept of Run, Try, Bike came to be.
Man, like we talk about it so often, and I think part of the reason we talk about it so often and why we don't share it on our social platforms is because we're talking about it outside of our social platforms so often. But I do think it's important that people hear the story. So obviously we all lived through the pandemic, went through it. And while I was going through that pandemic, I was working for a company called Travel Host. If you have the word travel in your business name during a pandemic, it's not a good sign. And so I was very fortunate that my mentor, Bill Schroeder, kept me on board. I went from a full-time employee to a consultant for him. There were three of us running this, multi-million-dollar business, and it was crazy. It was hectic, but it was a huge, massive amount of learning. And one day, Bill got a phone call from a business broker asking if Bill was interested in buying Texas Runner and Triathlete magazine. Knowing my background, he said to me, "Hey, are you interested in buying the business and having a conversation?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll have a conversation," because that's one thing that I've learned throughout my career in sales and marketing is always have the conversation. You don't have to take action if it doesn't fit your needs and wants. I talked to the business owner at the time, and she was asking for what I considered to be a very large amount of money for something that didn't have value behind it in my perspective. So I offered her pennies on the dollar. She said no. I said no. But when I hung up the phone, I looked at Bill, and it was as if it was an epiphany had hit me like nothing other. And I said, Bill, I don't need to buy the business. I can build it on my own. And I literally started the business that day. And I reached out to some freelance journalists, and I just asked them questions. What could we do to set us apart from other competitors in the marketplace? And they simply said, if you write to, with, and for the beginner athlete, you'll have an opportunity to stand out from the crowd. So I took that under advisement, but I didn't think it was enough, right? I didn't think just doing beginner type stuff was enough. And what I wanted to do was share stories from my perspective. And I mean that as an athlete, right? Where I'm competing, and some days I might be, middle front of the pack. I might be middle back of the pack. I might DNF, might not get to the start line. And I wanted to tell those stories, but I also wanted to tell them and have stories be told, from the perspective of women, the perspective of people of color, the perspective of LGBTQIA plus athletes, as well as physically challenged and disabled athletes, those that are visible and those that are invisible. We can see somebody who might have a prosthetic and recognize that they have a challenge, but there are people who have diseases that we cannot see and that may also impact them. And so I wanted to develop this platform where they had an opportunity to tell their story, because I believe through human connection and community, we get inspired to do things. It's one thing to see billionaires and trillionaires running businesses, but we can't identify with that. It's one thing to see somebody run a 4-minute mile, to race an Ironman in under 8 hours, to finish a 100-miler in 14, 15 hours. But we can't connect with that. That's not our ability. We can connect with people like Aum, like you, like myself, like other people who have shared their stories on our platform, because I think those are the stories that inspire others to get involved. And that's why I started Run, Try, Bike, going on 3 years now, and why we continue to push the narrative that there is a spot at the starting line for everybody.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. There's just, while those stories are great, kudos to, shout out to Courtney DeWalter for breaking the course record at Western States, shout out to the Jim Wamsies of the world for breaking course records at those races, and, shout out to all those top athletes and the achievements they're making at the top of the sport. But every other publication is talking about it, and nobody is given the shine to the people in the mid-pack and the back of the pack, the people who are fighting a silent battle, the people who come from different and diverse backgrounds. And, everybody's got a story. And I think even before I joined Run, Try, Bike, I would stand at the start line of an ultra, and you have a lot of time to think in a 100-mile race. So one of the things I'm thinking of is man, every single person at the start line has a reason for being here. They all have a story. And then, I happen to, so now, I'll segue into how I met Jason, which is the craziest thing ever, because it ties around to my own ultra running career. I started, it was actually even just a couple months after you launched the business. I still, to this day, we have no idea. I mean, your answer will always be marketing works for how we found you, how I found you. But I wrote a How It All Started feature, which anybody can write a How It All Started feature on our website, by the way. You just go to runtrimag.com, and there's a How It All Started page, and you can submit 500 to 700 words and just tell us your amazing story, and we want to hear it. So that's a call to action right there. Submit your How It All Started.
I will add to that too. So if you want to write your own story, that's great. We're happy to work with you and edit it and send you questions to help develop the story. If you don't want to write your own story per se, but you want to talk about it because you're more comfortable doing that, we will set up a time to interview you and talk to you and take notes and write the story, with you, so that, when we publish it, it's in your words and in your vision and in your mind, about how you got started in the sport. That would help inspire others too. So don't be intimidated about writing the story. I will also emphasize this. Do what Aum did, nearly 3 years ago, and just do it. Take the action to click on submit your story and send it in, because your story matters. Your story inspires. Your story motivates. Don't think for a moment that what you have done to get to any start line or any finish line of an endurance event, from a 5K to a 100-miler, from a sprint triathlon to an Ironman.
Yeah.
Your story matters.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Your story matters. And, it's very easy to look at other people around you in the sport and see if that people are doing more. People are, relatively doing more, let's say. And you look at what you're doing. Maybe it's like you're comparing to someone doing 100 miles and you're doing a 5K. Or you're comparing to someone doing a 5K and you're walking down the block. Don't even think for a moment that matters. It's all relative. To us, it's about it's your story. It's your story, and your story matters. And it's all about the triumph of the human spirit to us. Just people from diverse backgrounds, just doing this amazing thing, just trying to be better people, looking for growth. And so your story does matter, and we want to hear your story, and we've interviewed so many amazing people on our channel and, in conversations, and they've resulted in some amazing stories, some of which have gotten Jason and I very emotional.
Say the least. I just told Oscar the other day that, he submitted his story over a year ago, and every time I read it, it's just so impactful to me when I read it. And I just think that when you read the stories from these everyday athletes, it's damn near impossible to walk away without being affected. Now, I will provide a word of caution to this, because I know myself. I read these stories, and I'm not comparing myself to them, but I do sometimes get envious of what they're doing in this way. Aum, 6-day stage race in Peru or Chile, I don't remember. And I'm like, how awesome would that be? And then he's falling, I'm like, how great would that be? And I just interviewed Maria this morning for How It All Started. That'll come out in July. She's part of Team Go Big, which is going to be on our cover story for our upcoming digital magazine. And she just did a 2-mile swim, and I'm like, how awesome would that be? So I get influenced, not by like the comparison part of it all, like, oh, they were faster, stronger, fitter, whatever. I'm like, how cool would it be to do that? How cool would it be to do that? How cool would it be to do that? So that's my word of caution, because these athletes are doing some really cool shit.
Right. Right. Like, shout out to Adina O'Neill too. Like, when I read about her Kingdom swim, I was like, man, that really makes me want to swim. Like, and man, it's just, and even just like me, like, you can get my butt on the saddle of a bike, and then I'll read about like what Abby Robbins did.
Yep.
With like queer gravel and like gravel cycling, and their story is amazing, and like it makes me want to jump on a bike.
I'm telling you, like, we just had the series with Marley Blonsky racing at Unbound, and she's posted videos of the mud section, and she's gliding through the mud, and while everybody else is walking their bike. And I get super excited. I'm like, because I love gravel cycling. I've done it in the past, and I'm like, I need to do more of that. I need to get back on my gravel bike. Or Brooke Gowdy, who we're doing a series on her through our newsletter as well, is racing at Leadville. I bought a mountain bike, and I'm deathly afraid of mountain biking because I like my teeth in my mouth. Like, I'm super afraid of mountain biking. But I read her story, and I'm like, man, maybe I should get back into the mountain biking scene and try it again. Like, to me, that's why we do what we do, because it's inspiring, and it's motivating, and it gets people to think to themselves, hey, if they can do it, so can I.
Right. I 100% agree with that. So going back to me, like, I wrote a story back in April of 2021, I believe it was, because I saw Hector. My explanation is I saw Hector write a story about it, and he made a whole post about it, and Hector is always just like shouting everyone out. And that ultimately led to me thinking like, well, maybe I should write one, get my name out there. And it was about a week before my first 100-mile race, and I wrote a story called It Started With a Quarter of a Mile. And that story ultimately changed my life in ways that I would not have recognized there. It was literally the, like, if we're talking about like there's a quote saying like, there's this quote that says like, you're unlocking doors that you can't see yet. That was the epitome of that quote. I And I went back to, and I was still in my civil engineering job at the time. I went and did my first 100, my second 100, 72-hour race, and this whole time, like, Jason's watching this whole thing unfold, and he's like, "Look at these two guys who rode for Run Try Bike who are like together now." Like, I paced Hector at Bigfoot. He came out to pace me at across the years, 72 hours. And that very October, I was on my drive to Moab, and I'm like, man, I'm tired of this like civil engineering career. I'm going to start building out a writing business, which ultimately the writing business didn't take off, but that was also because I found what I wanted to do, and I found my purpose with Run Try Bike. But I started writing columns for Run Try Bike. I wrote an article called Positivity. I think it was called like the importance of positivity in endurance sports. And that article ultimately also led me to being discovered by Merrill and becoming a sponsor of Merrill Athletes. So now at this point, like, I've had this conversation in my head a few times. I don't know how many times I've had it with you, Jason, but I'm like, man, literally my entire new life has orbited around this company since like 2 years ago. It's crazy.
Like,
yeah.
when I launched this business, 3 years ago, the hope was to connect people. The hope was that we would have a community. And when I saw you and Hector connecting with each other, that was a moment for me. I was like, okay, I'm onto something, but we have to nurture this. We can't just, plow through it, and because otherwise it'll lose the connections and the authenticity of those connections. Because it's one thing to read about it on social media or read an article on a website. It's another thing to connect with people in person. And over that time, right, like, we've met people in the community from other places. We did what was the name of that? Oh, Jackpot, right? And as I'm running at Jackpot, and I've got the Run Try Bike hat on, some athlete running out there is like, "Hey, you're that guy." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm that guy." I have no idea what they were talking about, but sure, right? Just come back around, and they were like, "Hey, I didn't mean to sound crazy, but I've seen your Fireside Chats, and I really appreciate what you guys are doing." And I just thought that, like, there's another moment in our short history proving that we are on the right path to building this community, to showcasing the everyday athlete, to highlighting their accomplishments, because those are the people that I get fired up about. Like, you want a hype man? Let me know when you're racing. I will pummel your social media with messages. I will cheer you on. I will root hard for you, because it takes a lot of courage just to start. It takes a lot of courage just to start. And sometimes we think we can go at it on our own, but 9 times out of 10, you need somebody to stand behind you and hold you up when you're not being as successful as you want to be. And that will happen. In endurance sports, that will happen. So just be prepared for that too. So I think it's been 3 years. Your writing for us resonated with me as well, right? Because my journey started with a quarter mile as well, which is bananas, right? The connections are seemingly endless with us. But I do think that, by continuing to showcase our own vulnerabilities with DNFs, with DNSs, with not reaching goals, also helps the athletes who are telling their stories through our platform too.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. There are just so many amazing stories out there, and I agree with the point you made about like how difficult it is just to get to the start line. I mean, it's not just like getting to that start line, right? It's like, it's looking around and thinking, man, what have all these people done? Like, what journeys have they been through just to get to the start line? Like, we know our friend Callie just DNF Western States, but like, the journey it took to get there, the things she's learned, it's like, I'm sure she knows it too, because next thing you know, she was enjoying pineapple pizza right after the race. So, as anyone would.
Lying to herself that she was enjoying it.
but, segueing back to like the next step, like tell them, so tell the audience like what happened in March of last year.
So so I know we're on social media on Instagram Live right now, and this will be on a YouTube channel, it'll be on a podcast at some point. But you guys understand, like, social media is overwhelming when it comes to being a business owner. You know you have to be there, you know you have to do it, but simultaneously, you got to handle finances, you got to handle sales, you got to handle operations. Like, it's just too much. And so one day, Aum and I were exchanging emails, and in the email reply to me, he, flippantly made mention to the fact that he manages social media. And I was like, hold up, what do you mean you handle social media? I'm more than happy to talk to you about this because I need help. And so we got on a phone call and we chatted, and I essentially hired Aum, as a social media manager for Run Try Bike. And after about 60, 90 days or so, I was like, you know what? He needs to be a part of the company. He needs to have a stake in the game here and benefit from the rewards that I believe we're going to achieve down the road.
And before you continue, can I just say that, when I said I could manage social media, it was more like, I'll take a stab at this. Because, man, like, it was a complete 180 from what I was doing as a civil engineer. I was like, I knew I loved to talk to people, and I'd been managing my own social media for a while, so it wasn't a total lie, but like, taking on the social media of a business was very overwhelming to start. And I didn't know what I was getting into, and it was ultras that taught me to take the leap into the fear of the unknown. But like, man, saying that I can do social media was the equivalent of saying I can do 100 miles right when I hit the register button before the race. But yeah.
Cheryl, I appreciate the compliment. Your support means the world to Aum and I. So I know we've messaged you and typed it out, but this is verbal for all to hear. Like, Cheryl, you are by far one of our best supporters, and 9 times out of 10 when Aum and I are discussing things, we are discussing them in the eyes of you, in terms of how is Cheryl going to perceive this, how is Cheryl going to react to this, because you are the epitome of the athlete that we want to tell the story of. And so thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate that. By the way, Cheryl typed a comment. If you guys have any questions for Aum and I about the business, how we got started, where we're going, what we think we want to do, or somebody you want to nominate that we should go talk to for a How It All Started feature, please either use a little question mark down there or type the comment in. We're happy to talk to people. So anyway, back to that part where Aum becomes a partner. So he and I got on a phone call, and I've been in sales, for going on 30 years now, and I didn't want to sell Aum on the idea of being an owner. I wanted him to have all of the information, what the risks were going to be, what the rewards were going to be, what the expectations were going to be, because I didn't want him to be surprised. That's just not something that we do as a company. We don't want to surprise our clients. We are upfront with them on everything that we do. And so I wanted to make sure he was also aware of what was going to be involved with the business and the responsibilities. And, I don't know if it took more than, 14 days or so, but, within 2 weeks of that conversation, we essentially had an agreement in which Aum would become a part owner in the business. And so, we're going on a little over a year and a quarter, excuse me, of being business partners. And I will also tell you this, right? So being in a partnership is so helpful when it comes to being in business, because this whole thing that's happening here with these fireside chats doesn't happen without Aum. Like, he had this vision for an idea of a conversation to expand our business model distribution wise to go from just the written word, just social media, just the digital magazine, to also including these conversations and videos. I will tell you this, at the time, I was like, just another, give me a fucking break. Really? Something else? Like, I'm drowning in shit over here already, and he wants to add something else to this process. Well, I was wrong, and I'm happy to admit that I was wrong, because this is our 60-second episode. Is that correct? It's our
60-second episode.
60-second episode, and we have had the opportunity to have so many conversations with so many athletes that have been so enlightening. You know, we got to talk to Carla, who I met at Around the Years. You were running with Carla at Around the Years, who's dealing with autism and racing in endurance sports, triathlon, ultras. We got to meet Rach McBride and Sandy Nypaver, topo athletic athletes, non-binary and women inclusion in the sport, which was phenomenal from that perspective to have that conversation. To a conversation, our conversations with Adina have been phenomenal through this platform as well. And so, you know, it really does give people who absorb information in a different way to absorb the information. So if you don't want to read because it's not something you're interested in doing, but you want to watch a video or you want to listen to the podcast at some point, we're going to be able to bring you the different ways you can connect to all of these different athletes from various sports, from road running to trails, from marathons to ultras, from super sprint triathlons to Ironman distance, to 200 plus milers, to Deca Ironman athletes, and everything in between. So there's definitely one of those cliches, right? There's something for everybody in our conversations, but it's the truth. There is something for everybody in our conversations.
Yeah, we've had some great people on the Fireside Chats, and I'm excited to see where this goes as we have more of those Fireside Chats.
By the way, we have Saj from Barlow has joined us, so I'm going to put him on the spot for joining us on a Fireside Chat. So Saj, we'd love to get you on here to talk about Barlow and how you got started and have really made a big impact in the sport of triathlon through your apparel company.
Absolutely. That'd be so awesome. So one of the things, you know, now we talk.
Hey, Ashley, thanks for joining us, and thanks for sharing your story on our platform.
Yeah, we can't wait to share your story on the socials too. It's coming out pretty soon. But thank you so much for sharing your story, Ashley.
You going to ask me a question?
Yeah. I was gonna segue away from, you know, kind of our talk about the past and now talk a little bit about the future and kind of what our vision has developed into. So maybe we start with this. Hey, Ashley. How's it going, friend? But yeah, one of the things I really wanted to like bring up in conversation was that our business kind of started as a listicle in some ways. Like we were kind of putting out tips and tricks in there. Like we were still for the everyday athlete. We had the How It All Started features, but it wasn't until last summer or later summer, through my recollection and through kind of a snowball effect from the Fireside Chat, that we really started to think, hey, let's lean in on our vulnerability. Let's tell vulnerable stories. And now we've got like the Cheryl Sanfords, we've got like Ashley Andersons, Rachel Pomeroy, like Kyle Rubidoux, just so many amazing stories of like how it all started. And not only that, but like a series of stories. Like we had my friend Katie from Trans Rockies, you know, her kid has cancer and she was running for him. And we have Oscar Gonzalez, who wrote a How It All Started about like overcoming drug addiction. And we've had Sarah Tamal write a three-part series about her return from injury, and we got to just see her finish the Lake Sonoma 50. And just there's this organic like vulnerability in the stories we tell. So I'd like to hear kind of what you think about that, and like just sort of talk about how we were both discussing leaning hard into that.
Yeah. So from that moment, right, we've leaned into it, and we've had a motto, a vision or mission for our business from day one, which is there's a spot at the starting line for everybody. And we truly believe that. We're going to double down on that. And so our new motto is the voice of the everyday athlete. we want to be able to share your stories with our readers and followers and amplify them. Because when we get involved in these endurance sports, typically we're on our own. We typically don't have somebody who's doing it already and is like, hey, come join us, right? We're like on Google searching for something and we're like, oh, that sounds cool. And so let me go try this. And so we're on our own. But by leaning into this idea that we're the voice of the everyday athlete, they now have some place to go. They don't have to train alone. They don't have to race alone. They'll be able to meet other people from our Run, Try, Bike community at events because they've shared their story on our platform, and we've been able to amplify it onto our social media platforms as well as into our digital magazine. And so we're going to really amplify those stories, and we're always looking out for additional stories. So like I mentioned earlier, if you know of somebody that's got an amazing story, let us know. We want to talk to them. Like I mentioned, I interviewed Maria this morning from Team Go Big, and I had talked to Kyla Lupa, who's the founder of Team Go Big, a couple of weeks ago, and their stories are amazing, and they're super inspiring. I talked to Ashley about a week ago for her story, and we chatted for about an hour, and it was awesome, right? Like, we all have this common component when it comes to endurance sports, which is we all want to do really well, but there are moments that you have to laugh because it's like, this is ridiculous. So at one point, Ashley told me the story of how she ran the wrong way at one of her first sprint triathlons, right? And that's an embarrassing moment. I put in air quotes, but it's funny, right? Nobody got hurt. You moved on, you raced, you finished the race. Maria told me a story this morning about how she was in an event swimming, and it prompted me to remember that years ago I raced 70.3 Maine, and while I was on the bike course, I got passed by a dude in jorts and flip-flops, right? He had cleats clipped up, bolted onto his flip-flops, and he goes flying by me, and here I am with all this gear, right? I have all the gear, the helmets and the aero helmets and the tri-bike and just all the shit, right? And here's this dude in flip-flops and jorts and just goes by me like standing still, right? This shit happens, man, right? And now I want to take those stories and share them and amplify them and let them know. And when I say let them, that's you athletes out there, that these things happen and you're not alone. Like, share those stories with us too, because that funny stuff happens in endurance sports. It's going to happen. Just know it.
You know what that person is missing, and I'm not going to say flip-flops. I'm going to say what he was actually missing was a really quality switchback multifunctional headwear. Our friends at Switchback just joined this chat, and I just wanted to put it out there that they have really cool like comic book gator that I wear like all the time, and there's like a Shark UPF 51 that I'm going to wear at Tahoe 100, and yeah, just there's some other stuff brewing, but you're going to see that pretty soon.
The only thing that than the gator is if the guy that passed me had a bell and like the streamers coming off the handlebars.
Streamers off the handlebars, man.
But honestly, that's where our future is. Our future look, for anybody who's watching or listening, you can get tips on how to get fitter, faster, stronger from just about anywhere on the internet, right? What we're going to share with you are the stories that you can't get just about anywhere. We want to be the trusted source, to be the voice of the everyday athlete, to share their stories so that they can inspire people to get involved in endurance sports. And the reality is, we don't care. We don't care if you run a 5K or a 100-miler. We don't care if you race a sprint triathlon. We don't care if mountain biking is the only thing you're involved in. We don't care if snowshoeing is what you want to do. I'm happy to be reading or finish reading Travis Macy's book, so snowshoeing is at the top of my mind in there. And so, like, get involved in the sport that really takes hold of you. If you try running and it's not for you, great, go try cycling. If cycling doesn't take a hold of you, great, go try swimming. If swimming doesn't take a hold of you, great, go do snowshoeing. Get involved. Go hike. Go climb 14ers in Colorado if that's what you want to do. If that's what's going to set your heart on fire, and then share your stories with us. Share your story of how you tried all these different sports and then you found the one that you loved. Because there's going to be somebody just like you who's like, I don't like running, but everybody talks about how great it is. It's not for everybody though, right? And I think that's one thing that I want to amplify is that not every sport is for everybody. Find the one that takes a hold of you and get involved in it.
Absolutely. And also to add to that, just know that like the process is going to be imperfect, you know, to errors to be human. And one of our mantras is failure is not terminal. It's the building block to success. Jason and I mean, I had 4 DNFs last year alone, including a DNF at the Moab 240, which I wrote my DNF story about, which is another feature that we have on our website. We want to hear your DNF stories. Jason just DNF'd at the Canyons 100, and you know, it's a good story to tell. Like, they're all just experiences.
Other people want to know that I was throwing up on the side of the trail.
Man, likewise.
Brutal out there. It was so hot. Kudos to everybody who finished that race. Kudos to everybody that started that race too. Man, it was so hot out there. I just could not believe how hot it was, and just impossible to get enough liquids in throughout that race. It was rough. So hopefully we have you know, finish lines in our future, which I'm sure we will, and I'm sure we'll have DNFs in our future too. It's part of the risk you take when you participate in these sports. Just know that.
Absolutely. So the next thing I really want to get into is that we just passed 2,000 followers, which we're so grateful to our community for that, for standing behind us. And that is actually what I want to talk about, is our community. One of the things that, you know, obviously, like we talk about it all the time, we're in a business to make money, you know, but we also have a purpose for why we're doing this. We want to be the voice of the everyday athlete. We just, you know, we want to represent those people who don't have that space. And part of making that space is building this community. And I honestly don't think, like, we provided the platform. I honestly don't think we've done much else. I feel like the people in the community, the Adinas, the Cheryls, the Ashley Andersons, they've just, and our partners, you know, they've all just taken this, and we can see a community just organically like growing and forming, and people kind of just supporting each other, and we're happily doing our part to connect people to people within our community, and it's starting to like build out in an amazing way, and it's creating this space. And we had someone actually reach out to us for a like and telling us like about, you know, talking to us about how amazing like this community that we built is, and that really put things into perspective. So talk a little bit about like, you know, your perspective on the building of this community, and like what you see from this community that inspires you to keep working hard at this business every day.
And that's a really good question, because every day, you know, we'll open up Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, email, and there will be something from somebody about how our platform has helped them. And that makes me super prideful in what we've built, because I think, to your point, Aum, like, we've provided the conduit for people to share their stories. We haven't created their stories, right? Like, we're not making up fictitious events. We're not making up fictitious stories. These are real people doing real things, while also managing all of their other life's responsibilities. And so having that ability to share those stories has created so much connection with people. It's amazing. And learning, I think that's an important part too. So, you know, I was thinking about this as you were asking the question. We've had Zach on the cover of our digital magazine. Jessica Hernandez participated in our How It All Started, and Carla Simons participated in our Fireside Chat. Each one of those athletes has autism, and it's allowed me to learn more about autism and what they're going through to get to their start lines and their finish lines. Talking to Stevie Lynn, registered dietitian who deals with RA and learning about RA and what she has to do to manage that so that she can train and race, or talking to Brandon dealing with AS and what he has to deal with and to manage that, or talking to Marcy Braithwaite, the fat athlete, and what she has to deal with from the outside world on her running and all of these questions and comments really about her and her running, to Abby and Rach McBride and what they have to go through as non-binary athletes, to Sandy Nypaver and dealing with the challenges she has as a female pro ultra runner and what that process is like, or talking to Yvonne Spencer and the team at Fast Chicks about being African-American females in triathlon, right? We can read those things and get an idea of what that is, but until you actually speak to them, until you actually read their words, until you actually write with them as well, you really don't get it. And I think from there is how those stories come out, because they come out with passion, they come out with vulnerability, and they allow other people to see those stories and say, hey, they're dealing with some shit and so am I. We're a lot alike, and I'm going to use that as inspiration to move forward. I think, to me, when this is all said and done, hopefully in a far distant future, that's the legacy that Run Try Bike leaves behind for people, is the community that we've established and built for them to share their stories with each other.
And like just being able to tell these stories has made, and be able to be on these fireside chats, be able to do these how it all started interviews, be able to share these stories on the platform. If there's anything outside of like building this business that I will take away when all is said and done, it is that I am hoping that I will be a better human being coming out of it, because every single time I get on a fireside chat, I think just when you think you know it all, just when you think you know, or you've got something figured out, you learn something new, you see someone else's perspective, like with Carla, with Jessica, just talking to somebody like Jackie, talking to someone like Izzy with Meniere's disease. Just you hear all their stories, and not just like what they're dealing with, but like how they're dealing with it. Like 3 people with autism are not going to deal with it the same way. 3 people with AS are not going to deal with it the same way. And it's helped me just grow as an individual. And I come out of these chats, like, I'll be honest, like, I'm a full-on introvert. So I go into these chats sometimes and I'm like, oh man, like, is my social battery going to hold out? But then I come out of it and I'm like, man, that was amazing. Like, I just learned so much from like talking to these people. And
dude, it's so because I'm the exact opposite. Like, I walk down the street questions like, hey, where'd you get that hat? Hey, where'd you get that sandwich you're eating? Like, I don't care, right? And I'm sure they're like, dude, get away from me, you strange person. But I'm like the exact opposite of that introvert concept. Like, I extrovert to the max.
But I've had some eye-opening chats, like I think one of the biggest ones in memory for me was talking to my friend Patty Flynn, who is a trans woman. She's transitioned from male to female. And she had an amazing perspective on like transgender athletes competing in sports. And it absolutely took my opinion, dunked in the water, and blew it away. And I was just like, I came out of that chat like a totally different person. It was just stuff like that, like you're always just learning and always growing by talking to these people. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I think that's one, and that is exactly why we're doubling down on being the voice of the everyday athlete, right? Because I want to hear that story. Look, I've been doing this stuff for 16 years. I've heard all the conversations about watts per kilogram on the bike and power and speed and paces and hill repeats and intervals and fartleks and why you should breathe to both sides when you swim, or why you should flip turn when you swim. And it's like, that's all good stuff, right? There's nothing wrong with it. But I want to know the story behind you getting to the start line. behind you going through the race that you went through to get to your finish line. That's the story I'm interested in. I want to be educated on the lessons that you've learned when you did DNF, because that'll happen. I want to be educated on the lessons you learned when you chose not to start a particular race, because that might happen too. I just think that those are far more engaging and intriguing than another article about why I should do hill repeats.
Agree. So segueing away from that, before we wrap this conversation up, is there anything else you would like to tell the community? Is there anything else that we forgot to bring up?
Yeah, so be on the lookout. We're going to have some new rebranding of our Fireside Chats, as well as our How It All Started. You could see the banners on our Twitter, on our Facebook and LinkedIn pages that showcase the voice of the everyday athlete. I will ask you again, if you have somebody that you want to nominate or you want to share your own story, get in touch with us. My email is jason@runtrymag.com. You can simply send me an email and we can connect and figure out if you'd rather write the story, if you'd rather be interviewed for the story, and we'll make it work. I'm just really excited about what our future looks like. We have a lot of different irons in the fire, as they say. Our partners at Topo, Catula, Blue 70, She Strong, Run Your Wealth. Am I missing some? I probably am. Switchback. Allow this stuff to happen. They really allow this stuff to happen. And it's because of their support that we are able to share the stories that we share. And so we're going to keep over-delivering for them. We're going to keep growing this platform for them so that our audience knows what companies also share our vision and mission, because that's super important to me. I don't want to bring on partners that want to just use our audience for sales. I want to bring on partners that follow in the same footsteps that we've set out on, and that is to prove that there is a spot at the starting line for everybody. So our future is bright. We love sharing your stories. We love talking to people. Connect with us. Let us share your story and help inspire and motivate others.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to kind of put like the finishing touches on the conversation. I absolutely agree with how how excited I'm. Very excited for the future as well. Like, we just had a conversation about this. We talk all the time, so I don't remember what day it was, but I think I just told you how excited I was for the future when we chatted on Monday.
Yeah.
And oh, look, shout out to Country Sense. They were the very first episode of the Fireside Chat.
Right. There you go.
Yeah, yep. But like, it's just, I'm so excited for the future. I'm so excited for the opportunity to tell more stories like this. I'm very excited for our rebranding, and we can't wait for everyone to see it. And just can't wait to grow with you and the community and our partners as well. Thank you to all of our partners. I'm probably going to miss a few, but like Catula, Switchback, Blue 70, SBR Sports, Topo Athletic, and She Strong are the ones I've got.
And check all those businesses out, and not just for their products, for their stories. Go read their Who Are We and their Our Story and the links in their profiles and on their websites, because it's awesome. Like, again, I'm super proud of the fact that we've been able to help those partners, but I'm just as proud of the fact that those partners are helping our readers and followers by also adhering, shall we say, to the same vision and mission that we have, which is there is a spot, the starting line for everybody.
Absolutely.
I know we're not going to
Well,
rapid fire, but I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
Are you an Oreo eater?
I'm an Oreo
Hey,
eater.
what's your favorite Oreo?
Oh, double stuff.
Why?
And
What's wrong with the regular one?
the double stuff has more calories, Jason, and it's got more cream in it. I'm all about the cream, not the cookie.
Except that there's less in the same package, so the package you're buying is the same amount of cookies. Same amount.
Okay, that's a fair point, but when I see the double stuff, they're always at aid stations, so I'm not looking at the package.
Marketing works. I'm telling you, marketing works.
That's a fair point. The Oreo complex,
Yeah.
or the Oreo dynamic.
Like, look, dude, like I'm gonna be 50 years old at the end of this year, so I just like plain type of stuff, right? Like, give me no pineapple on pizza. Give me a plain Oreo. Cheryl, shout out to you. I love you, but you're wrong. Just a typical plain Oreo, maybe the mint one, maybe. But you walk into the grocery store and there's like 40 varieties of Oreos. And it's like, my goodness, why do we need 40 varieties of Oreos? It's crazy.
You know, the one I will always stay away from that made me kind of gag was the mint Oreo.
No,
it's like,
what?
Why?
That's the good one.
What?
Mint is awesome.
Oh, man. It's green.
By the way, for those of you that are ultra runners, trail runners, make sure you're carrying around the little mints because it is a great distraction for you when you're out running. If you have a queasy stomach, the mint will help you with your queasy stomach. So always make sure you have a couple, 3 little mints in your vest or your hydration that you're handheld.
Man, if there's that many flavors of Oreos and also just a variety of cookies, then we probably need to add that as an icebreaker question.
Sure. What about potatoes?
Potatoes? Any kind, but sorry, what?
Potato chips.
Potato chips? Oh, favorite kind of potato chips? Man, like I think honey Dijon is kind of like my favorite flavor right now. But I also do jalapenos.
You are a business dream, dude. You're like, yeah, the plain ones, but make sure you make a honey Dijon one and make sure the other one too. Because here's my money, right? Like, give me a can of Pringles, plain. I'm good to go. I don't need any more than that.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, if I had I love honey Dijon if I have the choice in an ultra, but if I don't, I will take like plain Ruffles or plain potato chips and enjoy them. Or occasionally barbecue is also very nice.
Did I ever tell you the story about my? I think it was at my first 100, second 100 with the potatoes. Did I ever tell you that story?
I don't think so. No.
Oh my goodness. So you're running 100 miles. For me, I think that race took like 20 hours or so. You're exhausted, you're tired, you're spent. And so you come up on, it was at Rocky Raccoon, you come up on this aid station, it's called the Damnation Aid Station. It's a party. They got disco balls and music and all kinds of stuff. Well, it's at night and they have like the trays out with the Bunsen burners underneath it to keep everything warm. And I could smell the potatoes from like a 10th quarter of a mile away. And I'm like, all I want is potatoes. So I get to the aid station and I take my grimy, dirty, muddy hand that's been probably with snot and sweat and God knows what else over the last, 10, 12, 14 hours. I just put my hand right in the warming tray and grabbed the potatoes. And I could see the volunteer at the aid station and her face was like, what did he just do? Because right next to it is all like the little Dixie cups that he was supposed to have, And I start running away from the aid station. I can just see her pick up the whole tray and throw all the potatoes out because she can't serve them to anybody else. And I was like, lesson learned. Use little Dixie cups on the side from now on.
Oh, man. That is amazing. I probably would have done the same thing.
I mean, you're out there for 100 miles. What do you expect? I think that's, COVID, if it did anything, was teach the athletes that, hey, let the volunteers hand you the food in the plastic cup or the plastic bag or whatever. Don't be putting your grimy hands all over stuff.
Yeah, I'll do respect to using like I'll do respect to using like clamps to like grab like certain types of food, but I cannot tell you how much it peeves me to try to grab potato chips with those. Like, I just want to grab a handful and go,
Cup and throw it back.
Right. Yeah.
It's amazing. These endurance sports are amazing, and these stories are everywhere. And I'm glad that we have the opportunity through our platform to share them. So, thank you very much for being, our business partner and coming up with some great ideas to help get the community built the way it has been built. Because if it wasn't for you coming on board last March, I don't think we get to where we are today and where we're going tomorrow without your help. So thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you for giving me the opportunity to explore an area that I'm still very new to, like sales and social media, and it's just a complete 180 for me. And being a business owner, I didn't think I had it in me to do it, you know, but it helps when you have a business partner who's got all this experience, and I think we make a really good team.
Yeah, and our motto for our business, dream big, take risks. Also, for everybody watching and listening, same thing. Dream big, take risks.
Yep. Shout out to Trail to 100 for joining in on the 11th hour. I really respect that so much.
You can't shout her out for that. Melody's pregnant, you know, like she's probably dealing with a lot of different things, man.
No, I respect it in a good way. Like, it was just, yeah, like, we can't make it, but we'll support them in the last 5 seconds. It's so appreciated.
And by the way, for anybody listening, go check out their podcast. It's awesome, Trail to 100. Aum and I have both been on it, and we had them on our Fireside Chat just about three weeks ago, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, see, that's an everyday athlete story right there. It just got off of work.
That's it. Probably woke up at the ass crack of dawn, got in a 10, 15-mile run, work all day, you know, come back and just got to do this. So, yeah, that is an everyday athlete right there. And that's the kind of stories we love to share. So thanks for getting right off of work and joining us. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Appreciate you, Melody and Jacob.
All right, folks. Thank you for joining us. Aum, thank you for being the interviewer. It was fun to be the interviewee this time around. And who do we have coming on next week? Do we know?
Who do we have coming on next week?
I'll tell you.
Michelle. We actually have Michelle Johnson coming on for Switchback on July 3rd, by the way. We're moving our Fireside Chat to Monday because Tuesday is the 4th of July.
Yeah, so you may have read Michelle's story on our website, trimag.com. If you haven't, go read it before next week and bring your questions for her, because it's an amazing story, and what she is building at Switchback is also phenomenal. So
yeah,
make sure you check out.
She was actually on the Trail to 100 live chat that they did, a live podcast or chat that they did recently, so you can also check that out.
Yep. It's going to be awesome. Cheryl and Melody and Jacob, thanks for those positive comments. We appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. Aum, I will probably talk to you again tomorrow.
Yep, I'll probably talk to you again tomorrow.
See ya.
Yeah.